plenty of you in. Some of you may have seen us from our previous webinars. My name's Ollie Coburn. I'm part of the leadership team at BASRaT. And it's my pleasure to have both Simon and David from Rehab Guru with us tonight. Very generously given up their Friday night to do this webinar for us. Just in terms of introductions, David is a physiotherapist by background. He's worked in professional football, professional rugby, and then had a career in the military as a clinical lead physiotherapist, working with injured soldiers and battlefield injuries. Simon is an ERI, so did his sports rehab degree at St Mary's. So again, a clinician, but also a techie. Did his master's degree in IT, and now is the technical lead for Rehab Guru. So we've got a bit of everything tonight. David, do you want to just introduce everybody briefly to the history of Rehab Guru? So the journey from 2014 to now that's got us here.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. It's really exciting to join you all. So thanks, Ollie, for hosting this. And it's also really exciting to having followed on from the webinar that you did before with a group that we know really well. Mike James and I used to work together at Headley Court with battlefield injuries and as a tertiary care centre. So it's a huge privilege to continue on from where they've left. I'm a physiotherapist. I still work clinically, so I have a part-time involvement still with patients, and then merge that with what we're doing with Rehab Guru. Rehab Guru has been going for many years now, and its original guys started when I was working in professional sport, and I was working with Simon in the military when Simon was a rehab instructor. We were working in a rehab centre and trying to work to enhance people's recovery, both for a 3-week period when they were with us, but also then reviewing them at intervals afterwards. And the programs that we were able to help people to perform were great when we were with them, and the reason we developed Rehab Guru is because we wanted to give them the best opportunity whilst they were away from us to still be sort of wrapped in our care and have that best opportunity to recover. And then I carried on working within sport, and I moved to Headley Court, and Simon carried on with his career and moving into being an athlete, which gave him some enforced rest and the opportunity to learn the code, which is a huge opportunity in retrospect. So the Rehab Guru platform has continually evolved after creation, along with clinical practice, both in military. I was also working in private clinics as well as professional sport. And my original back in the days were with the NHS when I first started. So I was all gowned and gloved and masked up today in clinic with a few patients, no COVID patients, thankfully. But we're still pushing and striving for what our community needs. And I think everyone, I can speak for many people, when the community, our industry is a little bit challenged at the moment. And it's a huge privilege to be able to help people and reach out with our software, which we've sort of been championing for a long time, and now we're in a situation to help many people. So thanks everyone for joining in. Before I ramble on too much, I'll hand it back to you.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's nice that you picked up that, you know, we're following on as well from the webinar on Wednesday night, which covered a lot of the clinical aspects, and I'm hoping people can knit these two things together, because they will sit perfectly next to each other, and it's all very timely. Size time as an athlete learning to program has clearly been very beneficial and brought us to this point, and it's given us, you know, a great platform for people to work with, take all that clinical stuff that we talked about and push it forward into, okay, so how do we now practically apply it through a platform? Just a little bit of housekeeping, because as we go throughout this now and start discussing some of the content, you might have questions. So everybody that's watching, you can submit questions, and you can also see what other people have asked, and you can upvote them. So if somebody's asked something that you particularly want to know the answer to, please do that, because it'll put them in a nice order for me as we go through a Q&A. If some of them fit nicely with where we're at, then we'll answer them straight away. If not, bear with us and we'll try and cover some of them off at the end if they're unanswered and we've got the time. First, a few things to touch on from a online consultations point of view. It's probably some of the stuff we didn't discuss too much in the clinical webinar, was around insurance, clinical notes, and data protection. And I was keen to do this in a bit more detail because it's where a lot of the questions have been coming from at the moment. So insurance is obviously a biggie in the UK. I know that sports rehabbers, physios, osteos, chiros, we're all absolutely fine to be working online, but obviously check with your professional association, your insurance provider. It's really important to ensure you're appropriately indemnified. And the other thing when you are going online is take all the same clinical precautions that you normally would anyway. Check all of the same things. Don't change your process. Nothing really changes other than the way that you're communicating with the patient and some of the hands-on stuff that you can't do. So don't get lax when you go online. Clinical notes is again something that might change slightly. You may change the format by which you do them, but again, nothing really changes. The content should be exactly the same, and if anything, you may want to enhance the clinical reasoning aspect of your notes. So if you're deciding on a working diagnosis and some differential diagnosis, be really strong on your reasoning for why you've settled on that and why you've put in place the exercise program that you've put in place. Because there are obviously some of the objective tests and features of an assessment that you might not be able to complete in quite the same way. So the clinical reasoning element of your clinical notes becomes very important. Consent is the other big thing. So there are techie solutions, there are non-techie solutions. It depends what works best for your patient. We've been discussing a few different things over the last few days, and I think the gold standard is if you have access to some kind of online e-signature or Google Forms platform, something like that works really well, or like any other online form for data capture. It gives you the opportunity to present all of the information, set expectations for the patient, and then get them to accept and kind of confirm that they've understood and they're happy. If you're not able to do that, something written like a text or an email that you can then save to the patient's record, again, that works perfectly fine. And of course, the other thing is if you're conducting it through a telehealth platform and you have the option to record, then verbal consent as well can also be used if you've made it clear to the patient that they're happy for this session to be recorded, or at least a part of the session to be recorded. Data protection ties in quite nicely with that aspect of consent. Recording is fine as long as anybody involved in that consultation is happy with it being recorded, and as long as you can safely and securely store that data afterwards as per whatever the laws and regulations are in your country. Also, the extra consideration with virtual consultations is your environment. So ensuring that nobody can hear and listen into that consultation who isn't supposed to be. And that goes for both the clinician and the patient on the other end. Making sure that there's a private space for somebody to potentially need to undress or, show you the affected area, and setting the expectation that that's what's going to happen as well. Other than that, nothing really changes with your data protection. The only other thing is probably the software that you're using. Make sure you're happy with the security features of it, the encryption end to end, and make sure you have it set up appropriately as well, so that it is secure between you and the other person using it. So a password to access the meeting, or a link that only that person has access to, or something like that. And I know Sai and David, that's something that you're really hot on, something you've worked hard on with Rehab Guru. Probably takes us nicely into your telehealth features. So if you want to run us through that, David, and Sai, if you want to chip in with any of the techie stuff on encryption and whatnot, that'd be really useful.
Yeah, I will. And Sai's actually written a really good article just to explain to anyone that might be interested, and that's going on our blog. So if you look on the Rehab Guru blog, there's a really good article that explains really transparently what we use, why we've chosen to use that, how it is secure, how it can be inspected, audited, and that just gives hopefully some reassurance that what we do is for the highest standards. Are
you able to chuck a link for that into the chat by any chance? Just so that everyone that's in can get access to it. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, I'll add it now, yeah.
Awesome. Sorry, Dave, go on, mate.
Yeah, so I'll start sharing the screen. And I think one thing that is hot on people's minds currently is telehealth. And so what we're going to move, hopefully you can see my screen. I'm going to move from Zoom over to Rehab Guru and just very quickly log in. Can you see the screen?
Yeah, we've got you, mate. Yeah.
Perfect. So this is what people would see when they log into Rehab Guru. They would be directed and navigated to the dashboard. Generically speaking, our app is set up, and by the way, this is our web app. Some of you may have used the web app. Some of you may have used the mobile apps. All of the workflows are incredibly similar and intuitive across all of our platforms. This is for therapists. And we have access on Android as well as iOS and as well as web. You mentioned housekeeping. One housekeeping thing for us within the telehealth feature, and I say this only because we've had a bit of feedback and some questions about how do you connect with patients. The moment we operate, if I use an example that people will understand, Spotify, for example, if I wanted to use Spotify on my phone, I would absolutely use the Spotify app. I would not try and open the Spotify website on my phone through a browser like Chrome. And although you can set up a telehealth meeting on this web app or the Android mobile app or the iOS app, if patient is connecting through their mobile device, it is best that they use the Rehab Guru client app, and then it connects directly from the client app through to you on the web app. However, if they're going to open it on their laptop PC, then they can happily do it through a web browser such as Chrome. So moving from dashboard, you've got creator, where I'm going to come on to later, and this allows people to start creating, saving, sending programs. The actual clients page is here, and this is where we would launch a telehealth meeting from. This is just a test account that I've used, and it has all of the features. The subscription, which BASRaT have very kindly made available to all of their members, has all of the features on it, and anyone who's not a BASRaT member who's looking to use a resource service such as Rehab Guru, everything comes included in it. There is no additional cost for the telehealth. These are some accounts that I've made, and so this is what I've made for today. But if we were to imagine that I need to create a new client and I want to then add them, you would go to add client here. And let's say, for example, we're just going to do another test, and then I'm going to put my details in. If anyone wants to send me any messages, this is absolutely fine. So this is how we would do it, and then I have appeared. So as I view on my patient account, you can see that I haven't been sent any programs yet, and if I want to, I can either launch the meeting, which would take me straight to our web. It's called meet.rehabguru.com.
Yeah.
If I want to send the link to the patient, Clicking on this drop down here allows me to either just check with a guide, and there is a video on that if someone wants a little bit more reassurance that they're doing it right, so that they can confidently perform their online consultation. Then you can go to the how-to guide. Otherwise, the meeting information is important, a bit like people would have been sent the webinar information. This is something that can be forwarded onto your patient via email. So when you have made the appointment with your patient and you've arranged the time and the date, this is the information. This is what they would enter into their client app. And so it's possible for the patient to open the Rehab Guru client app, and on there is a field for them simply to copy and paste this into the app, and then they can launch the meeting. And so one thing you mentioned, Ollie, was consent, and having read some stuff today from the CST, because I'm a physio, what they were talking about consent was that when a patient chooses to join the meeting by entering that meeting code, they are by virtue of their behaviour consenting to joining that meeting.
Absolutely. So that would be our kind of stance as well on that.
Yeah,
consent.
This workflow to introduce the patient to the meeting and to ensure that you have consent. And so that is the meeting information. If I were to press here, launch meeting, what it does is opens at meet.rehabguru.com. And this is where I could copy the link here, much like you did for your webinar today, and send via email the link to the patient should they wish to open the telehealth meeting over their web app, so over a desktop PC. So that is how it would work. We won't actually connect with a patient today because of consent and Caldecott and all those sort of things, but also it creates a double microphone. You have the microphone that's going through meet.rehabguru.com, and you also have the microphone that's being recorded through Zoom, and we would get a really nasty
to hear that.
I don't want to do it twice. So
we've got a question that's popped up that we can probably cover off pretty quickly. Is there any facility at the moment, or is the one on the way, for doing group stuff and having kind of multiple patients in to do, say, a group exercise class?
Correct. So this meeting information here, if I were to go to information, I can copy this again. And if I wanted to add a password to that, then that is possible. You can send that link to multiple people. So if you had a yoga class, a spinal rehab class, a Pilates class, it is possible to send that out to multiple people. And I think if I remember when you and I, Ollie, were speaking last week, there were other people involved in that. And so it is very easy to send this out to multiple people via email, which is a great way if you're trying to do classes. So we're just going to close that and go back to Rehab Guru. Are there any other questions?
Not at the minute.
To that, not at the minute. Okay. Whilst we're here in client page, rather than jumping around, I'll just sort of navigate you and orientate you to this. The menu button just allows people to delete an account if they wanted to edit the details, if they misspelt the person's email address or the person's name, or the person didn't want their name and they wanted something else, you could just edit the details here. But going back, this navigates us back to the client app. So this client page here, I'm going to stick on it because there's some really useful features. Some of our clients have work at different venues. They might work at multiple clinics, and they might want to deconflict the patients that they're seeing at one clinic compared to their MOD base or Pilates studio that they run. And one thing that we've created that allows people to deconflict their multiple patients is the filters here, and we have labels. And so if, for example, I wanted to select these two people, and these were, for example, from my Pilates studio, I'm able to add a label, and I can have a new label if I want, and I can say call this the Pilates studio.
Really nice way to keep stuff organised.
It really is. And so if I now select Pilates Studio and apply, these patients will show up here. And as I move across to the filters, if, for example, I wanted only to view those patients, it allows me to really quickly deconflict this. Other things that people might do is if they're just trialing an app, if they're a really small startup within their clinic and they're just using one account between two people, then it's another way to deconflict between two different practitioners before they then make that jump and then subscribe to two subscriptions. So there's a few options here. And obviously, it is possible to delete as well.
Can we schedule? Oh, sorry, go on, Si.
Yeah, so I was just going to say that we're working on a feature at the moment as well that will allow these labels or these groups or cohorts of clients to be prescribed collectively. So on the publish screen, which Dave will come on to later, you'll just select the entire class. So, you know, military context, that would be the lower limbs class or whatever it may be, Pilates Studio. And then you prescribe the exercise collection to that entire group of people. So that's a feature that's hot off the press. It's in testing at the moment.
Really nice for people doing the class-based things as well. So, you know, Pilates class with some follow-up exercises to get them through the week, for example, would work.
Yeah,
really
that's
nice.
it, yeah.
And for the practitioner, makes it much smoother, doesn't it? Is there a way of scheduling the meetings in advance? This is another one of the questions we've had in. Or is it a link that you have to send at the time you want the consultation to begin?
So the current workflow, suggested workflow, would be that you continue using your practice management software, be that Clinico, which is one that we integrate with and we're a real fan of. Other integrations that we have are with NewCow, Dr. Chrono, and there's many others and some AMSs. If there's anyone here listening and watching that's working in professional sport and works with some AMSs, Smarter Base is an example of an athlete management system that we work with. Then we would suggest doing all of your medical notes, your clinic diaries through those, and then the Rehab Guru Telehealth would be used at that pre-arranged time. The thing we are working on at the moment is clinic diaries and therapy notes. And so this is something that we hope to bring, but we're not able to give an exact time scale on it at the moment. But if you watch this space and keep tuned in on Twitter and on the mailing list, we only really send out things via email that are just updates of new features. So we don't sort of send any spam rubbish emails out. So keep tuned. And whilst we don't have it at the moment, it is coming out.
Awesome.
Okay. So we don't have the telehealth running at the moment, but much like Zoom, our telehealth does allow the sharing of your screen. And whilst you wouldn't want to share the confidential details of any other patients, if you were to share with your patient who you're having your telehealth meeting with some of our exercise creation, is a really powerful way to get buy-in and to demo the exercises when you're not with them in person. Here is the templates page. So here are all of our preset templates. If you need to know how to navigate to this, you can either go through the dashboard, which is where you start into templates, or again, as I did, through Creator, you're then into the templates page. When you're working with a patient, sometimes we find that they really like being involved within this process, because then they take more ownership of their program because they have been involved with its creation. And if, for example, I were to select this preset program, it does allow us to view some of the exercises, and we're very happy with our with videos. What it allows us to do, if we wanted to, is to expand. So if the person had some challenges with their vision, you can make the videos as large as you want, and then talk the patient through these exercises. And it's a really nice way of having a professional demo of the exercise.
This is one of the key things that we talked about as well in our clinical webinar, is the need to be able to show people things, because you're not there physically to, to instruct the exercise. So it's really nice to have the screen share feature, be able to come back into the app and essentially build the program together, but also give that level of instruction.
Yeah, that's right. So with these programs, we've tried to use models of a different range of ages, of gender, of ethnicity, and so what this allows patients to do is to perhaps connect more deeply with the exercises, that they can relate to a video of someone that might look like them, whether it's an elderly person, a young person. And that's some feedback that we had really early on in our development, and something that we made a decision on. Now, there are multiple ways in which we can create a program. To navigate you on this page, we have this orange icon here. And the way that this works is very similar to some of the shopping websites you might have been on. If you know Amazon, then the way that we have created the workflow here is very similar to the concept of a basket. We call it a working collection or a pallet. But if you can imagine how you collect shopping items on Amazon, this follows a similar intuition. And so I can either choose to load the entire program into my working collection, into my basket, and they will then appear here. If I want to select on that, then I can clear the entire basket if I want to. Other options to me are that I can just select specific exercises from this program, and then I can add that into my working collection. If I so needed, I can return to the templates, and I can also use this button here and look for ankle exercises. And even if I misspell it, the algorithms used are great for just spitting out exactly what you might want. And so I may also wish to pull out this exercise. And so you can combine preset templates into one working collection. And that allows for a really, really quick creation of your exercise program. This has given me the option to either overwrite and get rid of what was already in my basket, or add them together. Yeah. And these do come with preset parameters. And if that's exactly what you are after, then it is possible to move straight to the publish page. We have exercise searches, and there are around 5,000 exercises in here if you want to add additional exercises, or if you want to start a working collection from scratch. But in this case, just by way of example, I'm going to go straight to the publish page. And that gives us a break from templates, just so I can orientate you, because a lot of people start asking, can we download to PDF and print for patients that perhaps don't have a mobile device? Yes, you absolutely can. You can download here. If you've got a printer connected, yes, you can print it. If I thought this was the best exercise program known to man, I can also save this. And if I chose to save this particular program and I chose it as whatever name I wanted, it will now appear within my templates page, within the saved section. So within here, I have all of the filters. And if I remove the Rehab Guru ones and I look for that particular exercise, there it is. And so you can very quickly populate your templates page with your own favorite exercises. And this is not to say that we send the same exercises to all of our patients, but it's a very quick way to fill your basket, fill your working collection, which you may then modify.
We certainly might have 3 or 4 that we would, for common conditions, so an Achilles tendinopathy comes in, you might have 3 or 4 go-to exercises that everyone's going to get, and you further build around that. So to have the template and at least have your 3 or 4 already there for you saves you time.
Yeah, and particularly for patients that don't live in a gym, if you've got some of those exercises which don't require any equipment, that they can be your go-to ones. And then if you need for progressions, you can add weight on, you can add equipment. Other things that we allow within this page are also to upload your own PDF. Now, I've uploaded a few, so advice sheets for various different ailments, which may be useful, whether that is mindfulness and relaxation, or just a few test ones. And equally, if you want to upload anything from your computer, if you have downloaded, for example, the Start Back or the Barrow or the Neck Disability Index, you can add these in, or any of your own pre-made advice sheets, or if you've got any from NHS England, any advice sheets that you want to use, then you can throw them in. In terms of sending it electronically, that's one thing people ask. Yes, you can. To select clients, these are, again, my test ones, which are all me. If I wanted to, I can also create a new client here. I know I showed you a few minutes ago how to create a client within the client page, but you don't have to go through that method for every program you want to send. Again, I can add another one here, and I can use another example rather than just continuing to use myself. I probably need to use okay. And that will allow me to do it, of which I can select them straight away and then go to send, and that will send the exercise program digitally to the patient. It's sent via email to the patient, and it will appear with both a link to a web browser, like for example Chrome, so they could open the exercise program in Chrome. Is something that people like to do, and although we don't have a time to show you our mobile apps and our patient apps, which is called the client app, we do recommend asking patients to download the client app, because then we can create and capture some really useful analytics. Patients can view their exercise program, and they can rate their pain scores, their wellness scores, their parameters of reps and sets are there for them to select, and then we can see all the feedback on it. So before we go into any deeper features, I wonder whether it's worth showing you an example of some of that feedback.
Yeah, because I know when we chatted, we mentioned how important the feedback is, because you wouldn't have the normal follow-up clinical consultation where you can come back in and go through that.
Before you move on from the publish page, sorry to cut you off there, there's just a few questions I wanted to cover off on this page, if possible. So firstly, adding attachments, so like PDF information sheets and things like that. So Dave, if you just scroll down and go down to the attachments from library. So this publish page is effectively when we're going to package everything together. That is the exercises, including reps, sets, and all the parameters. And you can also add to that package a PDF attachment. So those are available both in the client app and on the client portal. So hopefully that covers off one of the questions. And something else that's had a few questions as well is the creation of our own exercises. So could you demo that, Dave?
Yeah, I was going to do that. We can either do it now or after the clients. Whilst we're here, I can do it now. So we've got our working collection, and we have the 4 exercises within our working collection. If I wanted to add to that, then we can do this in multiple ways. Firstly, a bit like you would do on Amazon, would be just to go on there and search anything. So for example, if I wanted to search for a squat, then that's what we have. If you want to search for a press up, this is what we use. If there are exercises which maybe you don't remember the name for it, or you're looking for some variations, you're looking for progressions, maybe you're out of ideas, perhaps the patient only has a very small amount of equipment, and you're looking for exercise variations that will match the dumbbells, for example, that your patient has. then this is a really powerful way to search using our filters. Much like if you were on Amazon and you wanted to buy a TV, you would probably look within electronics. You would use the filter of Sony or whoever manufacturer you wanted, and you'd look at what size TV you wanted, and it would narrow down your search for you. Another way that we can do this is exactly the same. And if I wanted to, for example, look for dumbbells, then I can add dumbbells. You could search entirely with these filters. And so if I also wanted to have strength as the objective here, and I wanted to target the biceps or the chest or whatever it happens to be, then you can add into here a set of exercises within your results based purely on the filters. And when you then add that to a word search, then you start to get lots of various different results. And that's a really powerful way to narrow down exactly what it is that you want. And so one other feature here, one option to patients is to create your own exercise for them. There's a question that comes up really regularly. And I mentioned before that the workflow between our mobile apps on Android and iOS are very similar to the web app. You can create your own exercises on a mobile app as well. And the benefit of doing that on our mobile apps is it uses the camera on your tablet or your phone as well as the microphone. So if you are talking to a patient and giving coaching cues, you can video the patient demoing the exercise, or you can video yourself doing it if you want to create your own library of exercises. And so for this, if I were to populate this in just a few moments, and
most people are going to film these things on their phone, aren't they?
Yeah,
because it's the most practical way to do it for most people. You know, they'll have a little tripod set up and do it that way. So it's nice to be able to add them through the app, because you haven't got the faff of transferring the file from the phone to the computer to upload it.
That's correct. Yeah,
I can show you a demo of the web app. The mobile app now, if that would be useful.
Yeah, that probably is really useful. Why don't we cut across to Sai, and then you can do that. Do I need to stop sharing my screen here, Ollie?
Yeah, if you stop yours, and then Sai, if you just, once David's done that, just share yours.
Just having to sorry, Dave, could you just cover, I just need to leave the meeting to give it permissions. Could you cover off how to update a template? So publish page and then update a template. I'll be back in 30 seconds.
Sure, if you stop sharing, then I can, there we go. Okay. So if I share my screen now, once again, can you see me there okay, Ollie?
Yeah, I've got you, mate.
Perfect. So if I have this program, for example, and I'm happy with it, then I can go straight to the publish page. What we offer in settings is an ability to completely modify your own program. Here we have a program with preset templates and preset parameters. It's possible to change all of the title of the description and as well as the parameters here. So by way of example, if I wanted to modify the existing parameters here, I might want to get rid of this one. I might want to add my own bespoke one, which is times per week. I add the parameter and it has appeared. If we end up with a large program and we maybe have 8 exercises and I don't want to have to go through this for all of the exercises, it is possible for me to apply that change to every or multiple exercises. So as I move through this, I am able to take those parameters, and if I click on this button, it allows me to apply these parameters to every of the other exercises. So in terms of giving you more time with your patient, which really matters to them, and more time, doing your admin, this is a really, really quick way of populating the parameters. So if you'd created a program from scratch using the exercises page, when you go to settings, you can very quickly populate that program with all of the parameters that you want. And then go to publish. One thing that Sai wanted me to do was look at how you progress an exercise. And so if we imagine that I am now looking at my clients and I'm going to view this patient, this imaginary patient, what I'm able to do with all of these icons, we give multiple options here. One which I'm going to show you shortly is the ability to view the results. So when the patient views the exercises on the client app, they will give feedback, and that is where we will see it. I can also open these in a new tab. I can delete the prescription. What I'm going to do here is load this into the collection. So this is a program, if you can imagine, that I sent 2 weeks ago. The patient needs this to be progressed. And because I've loaded it into the collection, when I go back to the creator, those exercises are there. And so it's very quickly possible to change this. And it might just be that we need to change the sets on these. It might be that we need to add some weight. And so we can add weight. There's various ways of doing this, as well as just adding exercises. So you may wish to do a single leg heel raise. I'm going to get rid of these filters. And I'm going to look for one that uses a dumbbell. If we want to, we can expand. There's some other options to either view the images as well as the video. And again, doing this with the patient as you're creating their program and modifying and progressing their exercise, that's a really useful way to get buy-in and for the patient to understand what they're doing. So I could add this, and if actual fact I wanted this exercise and I wanted this exercise to have the same parameters, I would connect the two together. I would apply the parameters globally, and I now have this new exercise that I've thrown in with the same parameters, except for me adding in kilograms. I no longer need this exercise, and so I can delete that exercise from the program. So that's a really quick way of progressing exercises so that you don't have to start from scratch every time you review the patient. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Quick question on uploading your own site, just from Francine. Thanks for that, Francine. When somebody uploads their own exercises, who owns that data essentially?
I was just answering that one
as well.
Yeah, so it's quite a popular question, certainly when Facebook's privacy policy is that they own all of your data when you upload things to their platform. Basically, an area within your account is created. So it's almost like your bucket for media, and we put everything in that bucket, and only do you have access to it. So essentially, you remain the owner of it. We don't take ownership once it's uploaded at all. That wouldn't make sense to us.
Be too much data to own.
Yeah, I mean, it's I guess it's aligning to GDPR. You're the original creator of it. You've uploaded it to a private area within a closed account. You're choosing who you assign access to that. Essentially your patient. So
and are people limited in how much they can upload as well?
No. What we've got is some people are starting to create their own branding and essentially create an exercise library of their own. So although we've got over nearly 5,000 exercises, because they want to have their branding and their look and feel to their videos, then they're setting up their own sort of mini studios in their gym, recording the exercises with their branding in the background, and essentially leveraging the power of our platform in order to do that. Yeah,
cool. Are you set up for the app now, Si? Did you manage?
Yeah, we can have another go. We'll try again.
There we go.
Cool. So you access the exercise creation from the plus up in the top left hand of the screen. And this is where I can enter the exercise name, set a difficulty on it, and this will be for filtering later on. Add your description, edit any of the parameters that you want to have available on this exercise, or add a custom parameter if you want to. Then you can enter those params. So these are these can obviously be edited when you add this created exercise to a program within the collection, but these are predefined ones. Can add media. You can get a quick look in my photo library. Hopefully there's nothing too sketchy in there. Okay, so I can also add videos, as many images as I want to this exercise. And then when I tap save, it will upload that media and the exercise is created, and that sits within the created section of the app. Got lots right down at the bottom here. And then I can add that to my collection and assign that to a patient. So that's essentially how exercise creation works on the app. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, top. Thanks, Si.
No problem.
So one thing, Ollie, that I was just going to move on to, having sent a program to a patient, is how we then view the feedback. So if a patient has chosen to download the RehabGuru client app, which is free for patients to download, and then complete their rehab programs while entering how many reps they did, how many sets, whatever the parameters are, and then their pain scores and their wellness scores, then this can be viewed by the therapist. And by way of example, I had contact with a patient this week, and they came in last week with hip problems, and having conducted a online consultation, I was satisfied that sensation was fine because they had a tissue and they were testing sensation in their legs, and they did a single leg calf raise. So I was able to assess the conduction at S1, and they could walk on their heels with their toes raised up. So I was looking at L4 and 5, and a straight leg raise we were able to do. So I was able to conduct all of these objective tests over the telehealth. But unfortunately, this person has been doing lots of planning for the COVID outbreak, and they've been sitting at their laptop for 12 hours a day. And lo and behold, the hip pain has descended into the hamstring and then into their leg. And so they sent a message to me that they were struggling. Being able to go onto the RehabGuru client page, find that person, and see the scores that they were entering for each of the exercises allowed me an insight as to whether some of the exercises that I'd given perhaps were either no longer appropriate for them because they were painful, or perhaps had they caused the problem. Yeah. And it's really, really valuable information when we don't always have the ability to connect with a person. It might be that our patient is on a business trip the other side of the world and they can't actually get into clinic, but you can connect with them because they're on the client app giving you feedback, and we are then looking at that feedback. So by way of example, if I were to share my screen with them, if I go into, here I am, into the client page again, and I've just mocked this up. This was a test that I did, started yesterday. This is the program that I sent to the imaginary person, and I'm going to look at the results that the imaginary person, had entered into the client app. What it gives us in graphical form is whether the person was able to complete the exercises. They were able to complete all the exercises. The pain score is displayed as a line in green, and so they started at 6. Sorry, beg your pardon, my eyes are failing me. At 5 out of 10. And with each of the days and the sessions that passed, their pain scores have got better and better throughout their care. Similarly, their wellness scores, as you can see here, the wellness started at 5 and progressed up. So that is a way for me to have an overview. I can do a bit of a deeper dive if I wanted to. If I clicked on one of the sessions, I can look at specific exercises. And let's say, for example, this person was experiencing 4 out of 10 pain with this particular exercise. If I had advised them that I didn't want them to go above 3 out of 10 pain during the exercises, then it's possible for me to see that this was the wrong exercise for them. And actually, rather than doing it on single leg, I'm going to modify their exercise and make it double leg until they can perform this more comfortably. The patients can also provide feedback. So with this particular exercise, the imaginary patient gave out this feedback, and they could say, and they would normally say something like, this exercise was too easy for me. I'm not sure what this is doing for me, or I had lots of pain from 4 reps onwards, whatever the feedback is. And obviously the more specific patients are with their feedback on the client app, the more accurate we can be with progressing or regressing their exercises. So that's a way in which we can use the feedback in a really powerful way to change their experience. I was connecting with one of our users today, and he was from South America and converting into Spanish, working out what does wellness mean. So if there's anyone from abroad saying, well, why do you use wellness? What does that mean? What does it give us? And to give an overview of some of our users, we do have patients that are treated through clinicians that might have had a stroke. They might have had a heart attack. They may have tore their calf muscle. There are a wide variety of patients. So depending on how you communicate with your patient, wellness could mean how much energy you have. And so if I see within the graph illustration that actually their pain was quite low for the first 2 days, but their wellness was really low. And on the feedback that they chose to write down, they said, I'm just feel exhausted after these sessions. And I then find that on day 3, their pain has shot up. Then that's really useful feedback. If the wellness you've communicated with your client actually means, emotionally, how well are they? Then it's useful feedback. We are in the process, and Simon can speak more about this. You might want to jump in about how we are moving towards a more specific way to capture this information with outcome measures that can be specifically designed. I don't know, Si, if you want to jump in with this at all.
Yeah, sure. I think what we're finding with the amount of feedback that we get is that whatever we was to kind of offer as an outcome measure, we kind of wouldn't please everybody. So like with much of our features, we try and take a step back and give you, the user, the options of creating exactly what you want. So we envisage that feature becoming an interface where you can create the outcome measure that you want to monitor. So that would be, I want to measure RPE. It is a scale from X to Y, and any other kind of metadata that would be required on that parameter. So you create that in your account, and then you can choose to measure it. So we can then sort of implement the interface to interact with that outcome measure purely by the the kind of template that is made by you, the user. So that becomes really, really useful for things like research. If you are gathering data, rather than being dependent upon RehabGuru creating the exact measures or the outcome measures that you want to track, then really the power's in your hands to have the freedom to create whatever you want
with that patient feedback, depending on
exactly.
What you need. Yeah, which will vary massively setting by setting. So sport versus private clinic, for example, you might want to collect a whole different set of parameters coming back from your patient.
Yeah. Ollie, the comment of outcome measures, some of the questions we get asked are, could you host the start back score on your client app. And so just to give you the people watching an update on this, I was talking to someone from Keele University on Friday of last week, and I was discussing the new Keele Startback tool that they're bringing out and wanting to commercialize. When we host outcome measures, there is an important, for us, it's really important to respect intellectual property. So the Keele Startback, for example, was created by a university, it was created by Keele, and they are happy for people in public service, i.e. the NHS, to use that for free. However, if there are organisations like us, or for example, a private provider like Bupa, who are actually monetizing off of Keele University's intellectual property, and we or Bupa or AXA are not respecting and paying for that intellectual property, then they may have a problem with it. And so things that need to be done is that we obviously need to be in contact, as we are, with as many of these institutions who have created the outcome measures. We need to request whether we can have a license. Is there a fee involved with that? And this gets very tricky, because if we consider GPR, where we are actually the processors, we're not collecting the information. And how do we regulate which of our users are from Bupa, which are from the NHS that are using it, which are from the MOD, which are individual clinicians? And having spoken to the guys at Keele University, they're not interested in making money from individual BASRaT users. They're interested in the Bupas and the AXAs. Yeah. But nonetheless, we do have a responsibility to ensure that you are all protected, and that you don't have Keele or Manchester University coming after BASRaT and saying, well, why are you using our tool when you haven't paid us for it? So it's a little bit more complicated than just hosting an outcome measure. There is one competitor of ours, and I don't mind talking about it, who does host some outcome measures, but when you look at the outcome measures, they are not commonly used popular outcome measures. And if you start looking for the Orebros, the Dashes, you won't find them on there, because those really common popular ones are protected by intellectual property. Yeah. There was one thing that we mentioned about 10 minutes ago, and it was about who owns the data when we upload an exercise to the platform. And so I quite rightly said, that is owned by you, it's on your account, it doesn't get shared by RehabGuru to anyone else. But it did make me think of just showing you our sharing key. And I'm going to show you my screen again. And so if I go on to RehabGuru, one feature we haven't mentioned here, if I go to the accounts page, and in account you have various options. So people may be able to check their subscriptions. If they want to look at what integrations we have, we can give you integrations with Clinico, Dr. Chrono, all these various companies. And some users are able to customize the program that is sent out. And for you guys, they get that branded with great BASRaT logo. Within this section of the account page is sharing. And just by way of example, we have some people that we work with, and obviously Simon, who I have access to the sharing key. This is my personal sharing key. And what this does is it allows me to share all of my own saved programs with other people. Yeah. Now, if so let's say, for example, I email that to you, Ollie, that allows you to connect with my account and with my exercises. It doesn't allow you to see all of my programs, because I might not want to share all of these saved. So all the ones that don't have a RehabGuru logo by them, these are all my own saved. And you also, Ollie, might not want all of my saved programs. But if I were to select this one, for example, it is mine, and within settings, I can share the template. And so for you, Ollie, who is connected to my account, I have just shared this particular program. The reason I've showed you this is that if this program contains a video, an image of either myself or of a patient of mine, we do want users to be aware that they will be sharing with that person a video of them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And once that is shared with another person, just to give you an idea of some of the other features and what that means, if I were to just look at somebody else's, so looking at Amy's here, these are created by Amy. And so if I wanted to load all of these into my own collection, all of these exercises that were created by someone else and voluntarily shared with me are now in my working collection. So I can go to publish and I can save them. So just to be aware, when you do share all and you voluntarily and you consent to sharing your saved programs with other people, just bear in mind that you're then willingly sharing your exercise creation. If that's a video of you and you're happy for a video of you to go out then to whoever you have shared it with, that's just something to be mindful of. If you happen to have created your saved programs out of only Rehab Guru content, then it really doesn't matter. But that was just one thing. It was something that gave me an opportunity to share one of the features, but also give you a caveat to, yes, you can upload your own content and it does go to your own account unless you share it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, awesome.
The one other feature which is really useful, and we get asked it a lot, and we provided this for the Ministry of Defence who we supply to, is this exercise program uploader. If you, when you send your programs to a patient, what we offer, if you're not using NewCal or Clinico and you're writing your own notes on your own system, if you ask Rehab Guru to send a copy of that prescription, what it will do is it will send in a bullet point format the program that you've sent. So here, for example, what I will be sent via email is this.
Nice.
And
you can then copy and paste, I guess.
Yeah, copy and paste. Our integrations with Clinico do all this for you. So that's why we really like them. Yeah. But it will email you the program ID as well as this. If you are working in a clinic where multiple people are treating the same patient, you will find these program IDs copy and pasted into medical notes, either because Clinico does it for you or because the individual clinician has done that. And the reason we advise doing that is, let's say, for example, I found this program ID in the medical notes. When I return to here, even if I wasn't the person that created that program, I can paste that into here and then load it. And so we spoke 10 minutes ago about progressing an exercise. Someone comes in, they've been given an exercise program 2 weeks ago by one of your colleagues. They're no longer seeing that colleague, and I want to progress the exercises. I don't want to have to start from scratch again. And similarly, if you're working in a department where a member of staff has left and you can't access their saved programs, through the medical notes, you can use the program ID to very quickly load into the palette all of these exercises and then go for gold, modifying them and progressing them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, super. So I know you've taken a question there. Do you want to just jump in and take that one for Chloe?
It's a question that we've been asked a heck of a lot, and there's been loads of
especially this
stuff
week,
in the media. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And the question is, are telehealth sessions with Rehab Guru more secure than Zoom, and how? And the blog post that I shared earlier does go into this, and it's a really difficult question to answer. And I'm talking generally about security. And if you read any of Zoom, WhatsApp, any of the other big sort of video conferencing softwares, have got really quite complex kind of security pages, and they'll tiptoe around the subject of end-to-end encryption. And end-to-end encryption is something that has been bounded around as a requirement, but very few people really understand what they're asking for when they ask for end-to-end encryption. So that's what the blog post was about sort of ultimate transparency as to the software that we use. And is it more secure than Zoom? Well, that's a difficult one to answer, because you've got an open source piece of software that is interrogated by hundreds and thousands of people. The underpinning software that we use was used by Edward Snowden when he was doing his WikiLeaks stuff. But then you've got this sort of black box scenario where you've got big companies such as Zoom, Facebook, Microsoft, and everything is proprietary. So you don't really get to prod around to understand truly how secure it is. Generally, it's going to be secure because they're the big fish. Everybody's trying to bring them down. They must be getting a significant amount of hacking attacks and malicious actors. And the resources that they've got, they would be stupid not to make them secure. But there's an element of remaining anonymous as well. So within our platform, you never have to enter your email address to join the telehealth session. It is a generically sort of cryptographically generated meeting ID. So it's not tied to an account. Now, all of these companies will be doing analytics. They'll be monitoring packet loss. They'll be doing all sorts of stuff to understand the quality of that session. And undoubtedly, there will be some recording of call quality. You've seen it in the media before about Alexa and all of these voice recognition softwares. It is very, very difficult to answer. But what I would say is that transparency is the key. Open source software, and essentially using end-to-end, so encrypted in transit. So our platform is it's encrypted on the device, sent across the wire, encrypted, and it is decrypted on the other person's phone. And we use a technology called Webrtc. So that creates, after the initial handshake, which is done over a secure connection, it then transmits the message directly from peer to peer. So there is no man in the middle who's listening in on that. So it is a slightly different way of doing things, where Zoom have sort of got a network where there's people in the middle that are transferring all of these things. That's how each individual person can have the recording and so on. So yeah, without boring you to death about the ins and outs of security, I'd say it is certainly on par with some of the largest companies in the world that are far greater resourced. And that is how we're able to offer it at the price point, which is essentially included within your plan, because we're leveraging open source software.
Awesome. Thank you. Have we got any more questions? Dave, is there anything else you want to cover off, mate?
No, unless there's anyone that's got any further questions. If someone joined the webinar late and didn't hear everything, if anyone wants to ask about features.
What we're going to do as well is we've got the recording, so anyone who did register for the webinar, we're going to send you the YouTube link so that you can watch this back. So it won't be a public YouTube video, but if you've got the link that we send you, you'll be able to watch this back. So yeah, I think we've covered everything my end. There's nothing here that I've missed, and we haven't got, unless anyone gets them in quickly, we haven't got any more questions. What I would say is that you've got a ton of resources up on the Guru website. I know you've got instructional videos, blog posts, etc. And the chat function on the website is there as well. And for our members, we can provide a certain level of support as long as it doesn't get too technical. I'm no Simon Taylor. So, refer to those. We're going to send you out the links to everything as well so that you can refer to Guru's resources on the website, and we'll make this available as a resource as well. If there's nothing else, I think we'll wrap it up on the proviso that if anybody does want to follow up with us and anyone has any questions, you can get in touch, because there'll be an email address in the follow-up email that everyone gets. Anything else from you, David or Si, or are we all good?
No, I'm happy if anyone else is.
Awesome.
Happy.
Si, happy. Great. Well, thanks very much for your time, gents. Thanks for giving up your Friday evening. I hope everyone's found it useful in terms of, if you're already using Guru, just exploring some of the features a bit more. If you're thinking about it, giving you that detailed insight. And if anyone does have any questions, please follow up with us. Afterwards. Brill.
Thanks so much, Ollie.
No worries. Enjoy your weekend, guys. Stay safe.